With Battlefield 5 just over the horizon, and Battlefield 1 coming to its theoretical close, I thought it'd be a good time to reflect on Battlefield 1 as a whole, and perhaps explain why, in my opinion, it's my favorite game in the series. I know it's crazy to hear, someone liking Battlefield 1 over all the others, that's just malarkey in this community, but it's true, and let me tell you why. First things first, this is just my opinion. If you like any other Battlefield game over Battlefield 1, that's completely fine. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is undisputed fact. Over the last few weeks, I've been reflecting on Battlefield 1 on places like Reddit, and I've been shot down for saying that I love Battlefield 1 because apparently I'm a new fan, or not a true fan, or whatever. Which kinda bugs me. Not because they're right, but because they're not. I've been a Battlefield fan since 2009. It's almost been 10 years. I've played every single Battlefield game since Bad Company 1. Believe me when I say I have a plethora of experience. Do I have the same experience as some 1942 veterans? No. Absolutely not. But that doesn't invalidate my points in this video. This is all my thoughts and my opinions. So starting off this reflection, I'd like to talk about maps. Because to me, maps are one of the most important things in making a good shooter game. Not even just a good shooter game, but video games in general. Maps are a big reason why I don't like Battlefield 4 very much. And I've stated many times before that Battlefield 4 is not my favorite Battlefield game by any means. Especially even now with its huge influx in fans. Outside of Gauntlet Railway, Parasol Storm, and some of the Second Assault DLC maps, Battlefield 4 really just had nothing good. That really brought the game down for me. But the great thing about Battlefield 1 is that it has solid maps. Both launch maps and DLC maps were all really good. That's not to say there aren't some bad apples, but comparing the amount of maps that I love from Battlefield 1 to other Battlefield games, it's just not even fair. Just to point out a few that I really love: St. Quentin Scar, Argonne Forest, Verdun Heights, Amiens, Neville Knights, Prise de Terror, Fort de Vaux, Passchendaele, Zeebrugge, Achibaba, even River Somme when it's not ruined by Conquest Assault. There's more that I like, but those are some of my favorites, and something all those maps have in common is the grittiness. Each one of these maps are dark, destroyed, muddy, gritty treats, and that's something that Battlefield 1 excels at in my eyes. I'll go more into this later in the video, but I think that it's important to illustrate this point when talking about the atmosphere of these maps. They take advantage of the destructive beauty of World War I and make magic out of them. While I'm not a big fan of a lot of the desert maps like Suez and Foul Fortress, they do have a spot in this game from a historical standpoint. And speaking of historical standpoints, Battlefield 1, as I said before, is set in World War I, and while it got tons of backlash early on for not being a trench warfare simulator, I'd say in terms of making a good World War I Battlefield game, DICE has hit the nail on the head. And I say before that I am a huge fan of gritty, muddy, brutal battlefields, and World War I is the perfect setting for all these things. Before Battlefield 1 was announced to be set in World War I knew jack shit about the war. Either because I never paid enough attention to it at school, or because it wasn't really covered as much as World War II, so it kind of slipped under the radar, but I never knew how complex and unique World War I was until I started doing research on it leading up to Battlefield 1's release. I learned so much about the war, and all of what made it a changer for how humans wage war. In many ways, it was the first modern war in history, introducing us to things we just see as commonplace today, like tanks, attack planes, portable machine guns. Battlefield 1 takes all of this uniqueness, and it's evident when you play that it does. It's so classic, you can feel the time it takes place in. They nailed the atmosphere in this game. And that brings me to the brutality of the game. Gas, artillery, spiked clubs, swords, pickaxes, flamethrowers, you name it. Battlefield 1, in many ways, is the most brutal Battlefield game yet. And I don't mean that in terms of unforgiving gameplay, but in terms of unforgiving aesthetic. Sniping someone in the head feels brutal. Smashing somebody in the head with a spiked club or a sword to the spine was disgusting when I first saw it, and I loved it. Laying down suppressing fire in the trenches of St. Quentin Scar operations as your team is being blown up by mortars and gas is some of the most intense and gritty moments I've ever seen in the series. That is something that makes it feel like a war game. Something Battlefield 4 especially really didn't make me feel. And immersion is a huge thing for me, and something I take highly into account when I'm reviewing a game. Battlefield 1 excels at immersion for me in so many ways, but especially in audio and weaponry. Some of the most cool and unique weapons that I've seen in Battlefield are in this game. The MP18, the Shosho, the Lewis gun, the Rebe rolls, all of the beautiful bolt-action rifles like the SMLE, Gewehr 98, Lebel, hell, even the Hellriegel, which is a gun that only existed in 2 photographs, is in this game, which is amazing. No matter how you feel about the gun, there's no denying that DICE bringing that gun to life is cool as hell. Not only that though, but the sounds of these guns and everything in this game are amazing, which is to be expected from DICE at this point, but it's something you really don't notice until you play another shooter that does audio so wrong. This creates yet another layer of immersion to Battlefield 1. So the game is great. Let's talk about the more controversial things about Battlefield 1, because as much as I loved the game, there was some polarizing opinions between me and the community. Firstly, the lack of weapon customization. I personally never cared for this. I wasn't and still don't clamor for customizations, but so many people left Battlefield 1 solely for this reason, and I get it. People like options. I won't pretend to sit here and say stuff like this doesn't matter, but to me the plethora of customization options in Battlefield 4 didn't matter. I used the same setup on pretty much every gun, and I know a lot of other people did too, so not having it never really bothered me. I also understand from a historical standpoint that customization is just not very easily done. That being said, I understand where people stand on this. The same thing for the botched conquest system. However, this is something I'm fully on board with hating. Battlefield 1 Conquest acts like Domination Large more than it acts like Conquest. For those who don't know the difference, let me explain it to you. In Classic Conquest, your team's tickets count downwards. The first team whose tickets reach 0 lose. The difference is the only way teams would lose tickets was either through kills or by not having majority of the flags. So say a map has 5 flags, and your team only has 2, and the enemy has 3. Your team would lose tickets. In Battlefield 1, so long as your team has at least 1 flag, you gain points, and you'd gain more points if you held more flags. The problem with this system is that it makes comebacks almost impossible. In Battlefield 1, if your team is behind by 200 points, you can almost accept that you're going to lose. The only way to reverse that kind of score with Battlefield 1's ticket system is if your team holds every single flag at one point, and the chances of that happening are so rare that it almost never happens. Another big point of contention is the elite classes. So many people hate them and see them as easy mode scrub machine classes, and I couldn't disagree more. Let me tell you why before you pull out your pitchforks. Battlefield 1 is all about rock, paper, scissors gameplay, full of vehicles versus infantry, etc., etc. So why is it elite classes are viewed so differently from vehicles? In Battlefield 1, vehicles don't spawn on the map, so you can't just walk up to a vehicle and get in it unless it's abandoned. In previous Battlefield games, however, vehicles would spawn on flags depending on which team holds them. This is the same thing, in my opinion, to walking up to an elite class box and picking up a flamethrower or a sentry kit. I just view the elite classes as mini vehicles. They're just easier to kill. They add an extra layer to the game, another part of the rock, paper, scissors gameplay, and I personally love using the flamethrower. Same thing for behemoths. Sure, they're not as effective as they could be, given the Battlefield 1's conquest system, but they've never bothered me so much that they ruin a match. And in game modes like Operations, sometimes the airship can be a deciding factor. They're just part of the experience that makes Battlefield 1 unique, and seeing the airship crash and burn, to me, it never gets old. You know what also never gets old? Destruction. The destruction in Battlefield 1 is easily the best in the entire series. My destruction comparison video shows everything it needs to show in that regard, but in my eyes, Battlefield 1 is unmatched here. It has stuff that can't be destroyed, but it has lots of stuff that can be. You can destroy almost every bit of a map on certain maps, like Suez and St. Quentin Scar. And the ground deformation is fucking incredible. You can turn a lush green field into a muddy World War I battlefield on par with Passchendaele with just explosions and bombs. And even a few months ago, some other YouTubers and groups would make custom servers on the PC where they just created their own trench warfare maps, just using the ground deformation. The E flag on St. Quentin Scar is a prime example of what you can do to the terrain in this game. You can destroy the hell out of everything in Battlefield 1, and I love that so much. It was something I was clamoring for after Battlefield 4, where DICE nerfed destruction for set pieces. I will take dynamic destruction over set pieces any damn day of the week. And you know what always delivered on absolute destruction? Quite possibly the best addition to the Battlefield series, Operations. Such a simple game mode at face value, but one of the most immersive and downright breathtaking at time modes in the entire game. Nothing beats hearing your whole team scream as you're all rushing down the hill towards the next objective, or sitting in a foxhole while people are dying all over the place around you, thick smoke and gas hovering over your head, trying to defend the flags at all costs. It's easily the best addition that Battlefield has made in years. All in all, is Battlefield 1 perfect? No, not at all. It has its shortcomings, but to me, it's my favorite Battlefield game. So many memories of this game I have in my head, from playing Storm of Steel for the first time to completing all the amazing Easter eggs, to the near 1,100 hours I've spent playing it. And while I have definitely slowed down a bit, Battlefield 1 still gets me excited when I play it nearly 2 years later, and that's a testament to its quality if you ask me. It had a solid launch and great consistent content through its life cycle. It's the only Battlefield game I managed to max rank in. I love Bad Company 2, and I love Battlefield 3, but to me, Battlefield 1 is the best war game that I've ever played. So how do I feel about going into Battlefield 5? I just hope it manages to secure some of that gritty, realistic brutality that Battlefield 1 pioneered. My biggest hope with Battlefield 5 is that it retains the immersion of Battlefield 1. And from what I've played in the beta, it seems like I'll enjoy my time. So with Battlefield 1 coming to its close, I'd just like to say that this game will not be one I ever forget. I will remember it as fondly as I remember Bad Company 2 today. I know many don't agree, and that's fine. Feel free to let me know your thoughts down below. I know this was a long one, but I felt like this was necessary for a game that I love, and I feel like doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to making some Battlefield 5 content for you all in the future. See you soon.